This is just a short little video to show how I finish off the toe. So I'm now about to do the last two needles from the toe. When I start a toe, I start from this middle section, I work down to a point where I have 10 needles for the tip of the toe, and then when I start, so that's your decreasing, and then when I start increasing back, the first two needles I put down, similar to same as what I do on the heel, and then from then on each side, and then from then on it's one needle each pass. So this is the second last pass. And then the last needle here, making sure the little latch is all open, and these ones are all open. So on this last needle, actually that's about to fall, I didn't come around enough. On this last one, I stop halfway. Then I push all the other needles down so that they're in work. Making sure all of the latches are down. So then as I come around to this heel bit, this toe bit, just the last this needle here where this is the start of the toe, that's where I stop. Then I take out my working yarn so it's hooked there, and then I put in some scrap yarn. You always, when you use the scrap yarn, you always look for a colour that's not the same as what you're working with. So then I put this in here, wrap it around the hook, see how it's down here between this needle and this needle, and then I just hook it up on the top of my thing, and then just keeping that taut, move around slowly, because the last thing you need is to drop a stitch there, and then keep going around to this one, and then again making sure all of your latches are down, around. Then I will go around 3 times. Then my scissors, I will trim off the soft yarn and just unravel that from the hanging. And then I'll just drop that in the middle. And then the other thing that I do is I get some stitch markers. If I can open them. And again, a colour that will, oh actually it doesn't matter, I don't think. Actually I've got white here. So these are the type of stitch markers that I use. See there? So when you finish your sock, you still have to sew up the toe. Some people do their heel and their toe on the same side. Others will do heel on one side and toe on the other. So the way I do mine is when I stitch up the toe, it's the row of stitching is going to be underneath the foot, not on top of the foot. Alright, so I get stitch markers and I just place it in the stitch of the last stitch of the sock. Hook it up. So it just makes it easier to find those starting stitches when you start to stitch up the sock. And this one here. And this one here. There, done. Just tighten that up again. And then with your scrap yarn, do a fair amount of stitches, because also the last thing you need is when you take your sock off, you don't want to suddenly, if you have too short of amount of waste yarn and then suddenly a stitch starts to run down there, you're then going to have to pick up stitches. So a longer amount of scrap yarn is actually better. And because this is my first sock of this pair, what I then do is use up this scrap yarn. There's not much more to go. And I will stop it there. And then I have this thread that it's a bit like fishing line. It's very strong and thin. So what I do here is I then pull that one out and do it there, and then this one, where's my scissors there, I will drop that down through and around, then up. So I just want enough to do one round in the machine. Just make sure there's a little bit of a tail, not a lot of a tail. Okay. Pull it through. That should work. So then what I want is just to grab that end and this end. Now if you let the threads drop and then pull them up without checking that your hook is open, you will drop the stitch that you're about to move through. So it's all about watching that those hooks are open. So once that's there, I then do this. Back to that same stitch, and I get some more scrap yarn, and the next lot of scrap yarn doesn't have to be that long because it's going to be the top of the sock. Go like this again. So this stuff is really easy to pull out of the tube to separate the tube. Let's hook that under, tighten it up. Okay, maybe that's not going to work. Got a lumpy bit there. You do get to a point where you've reused your scrap yarn so much it just falls apart pretty much. Do that again. Make sure it's under the hook. Let the latch open. So the other thing you can do at this time is oil your machine so that all the needles move freer. So I use a Singer oil. I just get it off eBay, not eBay, Amazon, and I just run it around the excess soaks up into the scrap yarn, and then you get it dripping down onto the slots for where your needles are. Move it a bit. So if it feels like your machine is sticking, it could be just a case of it needs oiling where the needles are. So once that's done, let's continue on. And I set up for my next sock. So that first sock that I did is so I'll just stop there for the moment, is a mock rib sock that starts with a mock rib with a hung hem. So it starts off with 3 needles in. So that's the hung hem part. So you're starting with 3 needles in and 1 out. So what I usually do is just separate the first sock from the second sock, take all the weights off and just put on this one underneath, and then what I'll do is I'll go, okay, this is going to be my starting point, but I usually do 1, 2, 3 And this one here, I just pull the stitch out, slip it over next to it, and take off the needle. And then I just continue around doing that. And then it'll be all set up for the second sock. And that's it.